So I'd like to sort of pull this back a little bit to maybe some of the really key lessons and things that you've learned over the years from speaking to the traders that you've interviewed for Market Wizards. So let me ask you, in the first two Market Wizard books, is there a noticeable change in trading styles of those featured in hedge fund Market Wizards?
No, actually, I don't think that's really much. There's not much of a distinction in that. Now, hedge fund market wizards came, I guess, well, at least almost 25 years, I should say, after maybe the first Market Wizards book. So it came much later, but it does include people who were around from much earlier. For example, in fact, it includes, of all the Market Wizard books, the fellow with the longest track record and the earliest, maybe the earliest trader of anybody I interviewed was Ed Thorpe. And he was in the Market Wizards, hedge fund Market Wizards. So although, of course, some of the people, if they're younger in hedge fund Market Wizards, then they are starting in a later era. But I don't think there's really that much of a difference. The only difference is perhaps that the very first Market Wizards book, and maybe a little bit in the second, there is a larger preponderance of futures traders, perhaps because, and I mean by straight out sort of futures traders, as opposed to people using futures for more complex strategies. And that's simply because back in that day, those were the traders that really excelled, and there were great opportunities in futures, and things like trend following worked much better back in those days before people started using the approach a lot. And the early practitioners of system trading, like Ed Seykota, had these spectacular type of results, which I don't think you could duplicate nowadays. So that's, I guess, one difference between the early books and the latter books. But like in both in the early books and in the latter books, you had fundamental traders, you had technical traders, you had people who did both. You had system traders, you had discretionary traders, and you also had a large variety of approaches in any of the books. So I don't think there's a big demarcation really that one can draw from the early books versus the later books. And I should add on that one point. When when the 25th year anniversary came up on the original Market Wizards, the publisher asked me to we want to do a new edition. So what I did is I actually wrote an additional chapter. So the volume that came out, I think was the Market Wizards that was re-released in 2012, has an extra chapter. And in that extra chapter, what I basically do is I go back and I say, what do I believe now about markets? And I have one chapter about all the key points. And I deliberately did not reread the original Market Wizards when I did it. But the point was that I thought that my views or my conclusions about what are the important elements of trading success really didn't change from when the first book was written. So that chapter really was probably more intended to make the point that not much has changed when you get down to the important facts.
Okay, sure.